everyone. Welcome to another episode of Conscious Conversations of Ascending Tribe. We have Clair Sentient here, who is a truth seeker and a truth sharer. Claire, would you like to go into a little introduction as to how you first started truth seeking? Like, what led you down those rabbit holes?
I guess, like if I was working backwards, like from now, I would say I've delved deeper into rabbit holes. But I think I probably started my journey as, I don't know, I want to say from birth, but probably from a moment where I could understand the world, really, from a very young age, because I had like spirit visits, shadow people experiences. Grew up with my mother being like she was a mortician, so we were around a lot of death and so forth growing up. My uncle, he and I used to talk about magic and all those kinds of things. And living in New Zealand, running side by side with the Maori culture, which is myth and legend. So we grow up hearing all about, Tane and the legends of Tane and things like that. So it's not, that's why I say from birth, because then as you get older, people start shutting that side of things down. And then I sort of went more into my shell and didn't really want to talk about those kinds of things. But then, as you keep going, then you start to meet more and more people and you delve a little bit deeper and a little bit deeper and a little bit deeper. And I guess that's just escalated into madness. Or whatever you want to call it, I don't know.
I really want to talk about, because you're really big on exposing the activated reality, and there's still a lot of people that don't understand or know what actor-based reality is. Can you give a background and an explanation as to what that is?
Okay, this is just my sort of theory. I don't think it's fact. It's just a theory based on my sort of research, which is more around sort of like when I left school and started to get into the sort of the work realm, it was like, oh, it really is just like school. So then you go into corporates and you'd have like, your CEO, like your middle managers, and then the people below that. And then I'd be like, and then you'd see that would be how like government structures and things like that would set up. And so to me, the actor-based reality is the world is scripted towards an agenda. And everybody that you see through mainstream media, whether it be Cardi B to, the Queen, everybody on those main stages are doing a job. They have a role to play towards like a greater agenda. That agenda is debatable. But to me, that's what actor-based reality is. It's basically bloodline breeding within a specific group of people, and they have a job to do towards a common goal for whoever. And everything that you see is not real. Like they are playing a part towards the greater good. And some of them might not know they're playing those roles. Those are the ones that might not be blood bred for it. They might just be paid to do it unknowingly. Like, if you think about some of these pop stars and so forth, they don't use their real name. They have like some sort of pseudonym or whatever, and they sign a contract, and basically their job is to do whatever that contract says. So that takes away all their rights to have an opinion. It's like this is your job, write a song about this. do that. So although they might have some sort of creative freedom, ultimately the goal is geared towards this pathway, like I mean, there's a lot of agendas that we could talk about, say like the trans gender agenda, how like in your day-to-day you might not know very many trans people, but we know on the main stage we could probably rattle off a load of them, even though they're a very small percentage. So actor-based reality to me is people playing a role to push an agenda of some kind, whether they are bred for it, or whether they're just compromised in a contract for it. They're not working for our greater good, they're working for somebody else's.
And so therefore, like, would you say on the TV, or I like to call it the television, everything is scripted and not real? Everything that you see on that device, because again, we could go down another rabbit hole and call it a frequency device,
Yeah,
mind
absolutely.
control device.
Yeah.
Everything on there is scripted, faked, acted out. Nothing is real, and that even goes for when you see politicians on the
Yeah.
TV, when you see newsreaders on the TV.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So absolutely everything. Nothing is organic. It's all we want this, this, and this. That person does that. That person's taking care of that, and that person's all those set of people are taking care of that. Yeah.
Well, we can talk about a few agendas actually, can't we? Because there was Agenda 21, and then like we have the Georgia Guidestones, which ties into some of the other agendas as well. But one of the main ones that keeps coming up lately is obviously Agenda 30. And there seems to be well, with some people, maybe a lot of, they're not clear basically on what the Agenda 30 is supposedly meant to be suggesting. Can you give us a background into Agenda 30?
Well, I think it's just an extension of the Agenda 21,
Mm.
and that is basically moving people into smart grid cities and moving them basically off the land. So into compact cities onto a social credit type structure, where you will own nothing, you will rent everything and be reliant on the state. And that will be powered similar to like the China social credit system. But it is sold under a sustainable, like the climate change type. It's packaged with it'll be great for the planet. But basically, it means giving up private property ownership, your rights to move around, your rights to own a vehicle, and those kind of things. So Agenda 22.
It ties into the AI agenda, doesn't it?
Absolutely. So the AI would run the social credit system off the Internet of Things, and that's powered by the 5G. And, that's a facial recognition system. So that's you break the rules, your score goes down, and so forth. So that's all AI run, and via the 5G.
Yeah. And obviously during this current narrative that they're pushing with the whole COVID situation, which I'm not going to touch on too much, why do you think they're using Jacinda for this kind of heroine role? Because I don't know how, are you aware of how she is perceived in other countries and that persona?
Not entirely. I mean, like we'll get the like Britain praises Jacinda, they want her as their prime minister. We get those kind of headlines,
Yeah.
but it's all based around the COVID response, not on anything that she has delivered as a leader. Her role, so New Zealand has been signed up to be the first Agenda 2030 country, right?
Okay.
By Jacinda. She spoke about it. I can't remember the name of the thing. It was in 2019, the UN Davos meeting. So she spoke about it there. So it's all in our policy. So we're going already hard out with it, and she's the face and the campaign of that. So her entire run of Prime Minister has not been about policies. Like, we've had the worst child poverty, the worst housing crisis, where it's just basically gone to shit. All they've done is pumped her up as some sort of, she's on the cover of Vogue, she's on some American talk show. Like, they've just made her some celebrity, because that's kind of like how everybody rolls these days. Specifically for this moment, because if it wasn't for COVID, the way it was tracking, she would have been a clear defeat in this election. But yeah. So she's basically here to lead the charge. And I noticed that there is a trend, they're trending towards that woman leadership as well. Like, I noticed they spoke about a few others, especially since that Kamala Harris has got in as well. So they're really talking about these female leaders at the moment as well. So I think that might be a push just for Jacinda. Her profile, really, because I really strongly believe that New Zealand was used to push Europe and the States into the same lockdown method that she used for New Zealand, to get everybody in these tier 3s, stay in your house, don't leave type things, based on the fact that she saved everybody from COVID, in New Zealand. So everyone's like, oh yeah, but really, no.
Yeah. It's quite insane, isn't it, that people can't see the insidious agenda behind it, because they have planned it very well. You have to give it to them. Like, they're very clever how they're doing this, because they make you think, oh, but they're saving they're saving the world because of climate change. But then, really, unless you really are aware of the agenda of climate change in itself, and then again, like you were saying, oh yeah, women empowerment, that's like now the new hottest topic. And again, like, when I talk about these things, I'm not bashing these things, do you know what I mean? But I'm just, it's just, because
they're
we
riding on the coattails.
we know that there is an insidious agenda behind all of these little narratives that they're pushing. But in the UK, New Zealand is seen at the moment as one of the best countries. Everyone wants to now move to New Zealand because of how they've been dealing with the pandemic. And all praising Jacinda. And over here, she's seen as quite a heroine figure over here. So I was just curious to know how it was being perceived on your end, because obviously you live in New Zealand, so you have a very different and possibly a clearer perspective on things. But do you know what I really want to ask is, can you give us some examples of how they rerun some of the scripts, using different narratives?
Okay. Obviously, false flag type, if you think of the shooting situations, schools or mass, it seems to be the exact same script. The character that does it seems to be fit the exact same mold, so that's just an ongoing script that just runs the same, and you're like, really? And even if we take the current situation that we're going through now, it's like we were locked down, and then we got a new strain, and then all of a sudden Australia they locked them down, then they got a new strain, and then England, they locked them down, and it was like, oh, we've got a new strain, and now we've got California with the death strain, and you're like, it's just exactly the same thing. And then everybody questions it, and they're like, we don't know where it came from, they're blaming poo particles, and you're over here and you're like, so now, I was telling you earlier, about an hour ago, we have just been put straight back into level 3 because one person has tested positive to a cluster they linked when they locked us down 3 weeks ago. So for people praising Jacinda, they should open their eyes to the fact that we have got a severe domestic violence increase, youth suicide increase, closure of small business, and a mega mental health issue. So if they want to praise her, then they're stupid, because that's what's happened to real people. However she's being spoke of in the media, it ain't true. She's a piece of shit,
Yeah.
and she's got blood on her hands. And that she's a globalist through and through. She has a super dodgy past, and she, to me, is a pure example of somebody bloodline bred for her position on the world stage.
Well, they do get selected, don't they?
Absolutely. And if you look into a little bit of her background, like, her dad was a twin, and he served in the cops for years, and then he became the High Commissioner in the Pacific Islands, Police Commissioner to Niue. Then he was responsible for immigration policy there. Like big jobs of the islands.
Yeah.
And her whole later schooling was based on a Freemasonry scholarship. So she's connected to secret societies and those kind of bloodlines that I believe are probably pulling some of the strings to these actors that we watch. Yeah.
I mean, this doesn't surprise me, because they all are connected, aren't they? Like you say, like they're all bred for these roles.
Yeah.
But it doesn't surprise me that she would also be connected as well.
Yeah.
I want to touch on what you were saying about now they're saying about it's the poo particles that are now spreading this virus. Over here now, it's that to take a test, you have to stick a swab up your rectum. Yeah, this is the new thing now over here in the UK. I want to touch on like the fact that they mock us. There's a lot of mockery going on, and it's like, but why do they do that? Is it just because is it to test the programming, or what is behind? And they're always using bums. There's always something around bums.
There's the full on, like, a lot of people think of that sodomy, like, there's so much. You're absolutely right. If you just think about like Kardashian, like all the focus on the bum, like being massive. And then if you focus on like dance moves, like there was a massive thing about twerking for ages. Of course, we have the gender situation now. And that focuses a lot on genitals too, where they talk about there's no breastfeeding, it's chest feeding. Men can menstruate, all this crap. But I don't know, when you go back in history, or even if you delve into those theories around like the rappers and all that, there's a lot of sodomy sort of rituals and like humiliation rituals, and from an act of war point of view, like for a male over a male, that's kind of like the ultimate dominance as well. So I'm not 100% sure what the entire sort of agenda is around it, but there definitely seems to be one.
But there's also like a mockery as well, like they're constantly mocking us. There's headlines saying flu is down by 94%. Things like this is like, hello, like, I don't know, is it to separate the ones who are aware and the ones who aren't aware? Because the people like us, it seems like they are mocking us. Like, that is a mockery. Like, now we have to stick a swab up our bum, and now they're saying flu's down by 94%. I mean, how obvious does it need to be at this point?
I do think some of it is a test, but definitely a divide and conquer. Also a show of strength. I think the war that we are in is psychological. It's a it's a psychological war, and so every little thing they do is just to further break down the psyche, and it will be a survival of the fittest thing. But I kind of don't think that will mean strength until it gets super serious, like when we're all like running around with bow and our arrows and shit, shooting each other for like a carrot. But like up until then, I think it's all to break down the psyche. Um, the scared people are going to get the vaccine. That's going to take care of them by the looks. Whether it kills them or just sterilizes them, or I don't know, turns them into a transhuman hybrid, I have no clue. Um, I just know that I'm not taking it.
Yeah, I agree. And coming back to the actor-based reality, how are they making it so difficult for people to see past the illusion? Because they do it in such a clever, subtle way, don't they? It's like, I guess again, like touching on the fact that they ride on the female empowerment, the climate change, and they make it like it's this is the best for you, but actually there's but it's like, how do they really get away with it? Because for people like us, it's so obvious. I guess because the
Yeah,
research we've done and we've been in this for like a long time, but I mean, at this stage, it should be getting pretty obvious, no?
dude. Like when, like to the point when we didn't have it in the country, like they're like, we're COVID free, and people are still driving in their cars by themselves with masks. That
Yeah.
old chestnut, you know,
Even
some
away from
people,
COVID, like I'm not even specifically meaning COVID. I mean, like, you
yeah,
know, the illusion that we live in a system where government cares for you and government is there to protect you and all of this stuff. And people, I don't know, I just struggle to feel, because for me, I from a very young age, growing up as a child, for me, I always felt that something wasn't right. Something didn't feel right in the world. Society
yeah,
never made sense to me. I never resonated with the system and the structure, that how things were structured in society. Like I could never resonate with it. To me, like, and I guess we are going to touch on this, tribal culture resonates with me so heavily, which I guess is why I'm so drawn to it, because just living off the land and respecting the earth, and I don't know, to me that whole thing is we'll touch on it in a bit, but I mean, do you know what I'm trying to say? Like, how do they get away with the illusion? Like, is it a mixture of, you know, the brainwashing devices, the subtle narratives that they create, word association, word magic, and things like that? Is it just like a mixture of everything, would you say?
it's definitely a psychological operation. I think it's probably some sort of Tavistock um, plan that they know for years. Like it's just constantly keeping people, um, you know, like a Stockholm syndrome, where you end up loving your captor. And I think there's a Stockholm syndrome element with some people where if you've had it so good, like, you know, I've just been out of Auckland to stay with relatives, and it's a whole different world to Auckland, right? And so these people are like bloody Aucklanders, but they're living, we're in the same landmass, and they're not affected because they can still get up and go to work, pay their mortgage, pay their bills, put food on their table. Whereas sort of people in Auckland are being locked down, losing their jobs, blah, blah. So I think what you get is if it doesn't affect you, you love the illusion. You think you're being helped because you're not being affected by it. Do you know what I mean? Like we all watch people getting bombed in the Middle East, and we're like, oh, that's shit. But it's not happening to us. We're going to raves and stuff, going woo. So I think like if it's not happening to you, it's kind of like you've got the sense of security that you kind of are being protected,
Yeah,
because you've never experienced your government like bombing you, or you know like doing really obvious evil shit like that. It's all so subtle and done over like a huge time frame that you just get fat and lazy and complacent and forget that there's probably nowhere in history where a government has worked entirely for the people. You just read about how they screw them over like all the time. And you can point to these kind of events till you're blue in the face, but some people, because it just doesn't affect them in any way, shape, or form, their life, they're just so privileged, they just don't believe it. You know, they wouldn't. They just believe the paper that they read, the news story they watch on the television, and yeah, they just that's it for them. Like, there's no way there's such a nice lady, or he's such a great man, or he donated to charity, or she shaved her head for cancer. Big whoop, but
Yeah.
that sucks people in. And then they just get complacent and just can't believe it. And the programming is totally real. I mean, with what we're living through at the moment worldwide, you can see that a huge divide in humanity. So you can see that the programming definitely works on some people. And, you know, you can't tell those people. They're like, nope, nope, nope. This, so I don't know how entrenched are these people. I guess it's like they only just feed themselves with one narrative.
It's very interesting how they don't sense something internally, or if they do, it's so, like you say, it's so hidden and pushed down from all the programming that they've experienced. I really
Yeah,
want to touch on I want to ask your opinion on what do you think of NPCs.
yeah.
Like, do you believe that there are humans walking around without souls here?
This is a funny one, actually. Um, because, like, I think you can't sort of touch the soul, you can't, like, at the moment, you can go, here's my hand, that is my hand. I can't grab my soul. And, but the soul runs the meat suit mechanism, whatever. So if the soul isn't running it, what is? But then I think, if you're completely programmed, um, your soul's probably been captured somehow, way, shape, or form, locked up, taken from you, taken over. And I definitely believe in those people. Um, I'm in two minds about the soulless beings on a
Yeah.
day-to-day basis. Like just the random Joe Bloggses you see on the street, like my neighbours or whatever, being not real people. But I definitely think that some people say on the world stage don't exist. They're just a character that that's their job. They play that character, excuse me, but when they're not playing that character, they're somebody else. So they don't exist. That's just a fake person. Um, but as people walking around like Westworld AI, I don't know about that one.
It
I'm still
plays
in two
into,
minds.
yeah, I was very adamant before that I was like, no, 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 there's like, you can't exist here without a soul. Like, this was my perception, like quite like a few years ago. It was like, no, I don't believe in the NPC concept. Like, I just don't believe in
Yeah,
it. But it's now, I feel like, doing a lot of research into simulation theory as well, which I really resonate with. But I think
yeah,
it's very important with simulation theory that you need to have a strong awareness and connection to the spiritual world as well,
yeah,
because it can be a very, very dark concept, the simulation theory, and very I don't know, yeah, just really dark about the whole spiritual aspect. And the two do tie into each other. We are definitely in some sort of matrix system. If I say, for example, well, I'll give you an example. The other day I said, sometimes I set like little tests and little intentions for myself that, I want to see a green bird at my window just to like confirm that I'm in spiritual alignment. Yesterday it happened, like I saw
yeah.
a green bird. Did I say yellow bird or green bird? I meant green bird.
Green.
Yeah, I did say green bird. Green bird. And I saw one yesterday. So those little things happen, and there is obviously something to do, but I think it's a matrix system on a spiritual level. It's much deeper than I think that we can probably perceive it as. But then anyway, so going back to the whole NPC thing, I feel that they have a soul. It probably gets very quiet or trapped away somewhere, like you're saying, because of the programming. But then also I watched a documentary and it said, you know, these people that you see outside your window but you never interact with are just placed there by the system, you know, so you
Yeah,
never see them again. They're not actually real people. They're just little
background.
people. Yeah, background. And that kind of like, I was like, you know, possibly. But then if I choose to go up to them and have a conversation with them, they will talk back to me. And then, you know, in this documentary that they were saying they have limited scripts for their
Yeah,
system, which I found very interesting. I don't know. And I'm now very 50-50. So I still get very intrigued by the whole concept of NPCs, you know.
I do too. Have you seen the Westworld shows?
No. What is that?
That's exactly how it is. So they're like real, they look real, they talk real, they have a script like a loop.
Yes.
Um, so they will interact with you and they can, but they basically they've just got scripts that they run on.
Yeah.
And I did go down that track. And of course, I have actually been accused of being AI by people. You know, when people think you're like an agent or an AI. I've been called a tranny. I've been called everything actually. So I'm like, I'm an AI robot tranny or whatever that means. I'm like, woo, yeah, I've made it. Um, but yeah, I've even questioned that myself. Have I been a program that I've now broken out of?
Yeah.
Because it's very hard for me to function in a day to day because I just watch people and I'm like, what the heck? What, like, this can't be real. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like yesterday with all that crap that went down at
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
place. Um, well, today I had the police come over and just want to interview me. And I was talking about, okay, let's say I'm talking about the color orange. And I'm like, blah, 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 blah. But it was the color orange, and then a big fat orange just drops out of the sky. That's literally what kind of happened. And I just thought to myself, wow, that's like the super craziest sync, like real time sync. And that happens all day long, you know?
Yeah.
And then when you talk to other people, they will have them stories. So everybody's got those little weird paranormally type stories where you might be I've mentioned this before, like where you might be breaking up with somebody and then hit the road jack will start playing on the radio. And all of a sudden you're like, damn, like the radio is literally playing a theme tune to my life right now.
I've had
You know,
that.
yes. So it's kind of like, then I start delving into that sentient AI. So you can definitely drive yourself bonkers thinking about all the different things. But I have no doubt that where we live is not what we are told. Who we are not what we are told. Um, I just think it's just one big secret, and I think that all the goal is to get the soul, and however they go about that. Because the psychological operations are tricking the soul to run the meat suit in a certain way, you know, like this is why you can see the definite, like as now what we're going through, this big psyop, the definite divide in the two types of people. And then I wonder, are they even two different species? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if you think of RH negatives and um, RH positives, are they two different species or what? You know?
That's
So
another interesting topic when you go into root races, isn't it? When
yeah,
you find
absolutely.
that certain races actually were here way before any other race was here, and then there's a new race that is like the more kind of like newer race. I don't know. Yeah, it's really, really interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's when that, like with that NPC thing, sometimes I thought, is that an actual like some real first prototype type thing where they've only got like the basic scripting? Do you know what I mean? Like they would
How are
like ooga
you?
booga.
Yeah, they
Yeah,
start
you
the
know?
weather. All they can talk about is the weather and how are you?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, how's it going? I'm fine. How are you? Oh, I'm great. Nice day, great. Have a great day. You know, whereas like I'm more likely like, oh, how are you? Oh shit, I've had such a bad day. And people be
Yeah,
like, you know. So yeah, there's those Ned Flanders, like, you know, the Simpsons, like those Heidi Ho neighbor scripts that you see, and it's like, wow, this is insane.
yeah.
This is insane.
I've just got a delivery. Hello, thank you, Alex.
Have a nice day.
Okay, thank you. Do you know what's so hilarious about that? I'm actually going to leave this in, yeah. I'm not even
Yeah.
going to edit this out because I just find it so funny because I was thinking, as you were talking about that, I was like thinking, yeah, like your delivery man is probably like an NPC, isn't it? And then I've just
Yeah.
delivery and he's like,
Yeah.
hi, what's your name? Like he's got like a limited script and then off he goes and he goes to the next place. I don't know,
Yeah.
I find that really funny. Like I was literally just thinking of that and then a delivery came. So
Yeah.
there you
And
go.
those
Real
things
time
happen
think.
to everybody can tell a story like that, like everybody. And you're like, question it, you know, it'll be like, so do you question that? You know? And so many people don't, you know,
Yeah.
whereas I'm like, question everything, you
That's,
know,
that's
like,
what I'm like, and it just, you know, I don't know how to turn that off, and I've never been able to turn that off. It's something that I've always had. Because then my next question is like, you know, well, you mentioned about taking of the souls. Well, loosh, what's loosh, and where are they? What are they using that for, and why do they need that? And then that, I guess, that whole that ties into the whole Matrix documentary, isn't it? Because that's initially like when Neo wakes up and he looks around and he can see like they're all plugged in. What are they taking? They're taking loosh, isn't it?
yeah, yeah. Well, because like we're basically batteries, aren't we? We are electrical. Um,
Mm.
being,
Did you see? I don't know if you've ever watched this, but did you watch Rick and Morty?
no,
Right,
no.
the only reason why I started watching that is because someone told me you need to watch it because there's so many truth drops in there, and it's like a silly cartoon. My partner hates that I watch it, and I'm like, but there's truths in here. Look at this. Did you hear what they just said? And there's literally an episode about us being batteries and how he creates a universe to like to power his remote control for something. So he's created a universe for that. And then that
Yeah,
universe creates, and then it just goes in and in and in. It's like so interesting. And then there's like another episode where they touch on the simulation theory. I don't know, it's just like so interesting to watch from that
it
perspective.
is.
Yeah.
And I do think that there are truth drops in what we're shown. And I think that has a lot to do with part of the programming. So it desensitizes you to accept information more readily as well, you know, like through the, like we were talking, like you said, with word magic and word and so forth, like with repetition. And, you know, when you hear it often enough, it's just there. You get a little earworm, like a song, you know, or a jingle. And, yeah, it just makes you more receptive um, to messages, I guess, like
Yeah.
people popping things in there. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very true. We can go so deep down these little rabbit holes, couldn't we? Or maybe big rabbit
Yeah,
holes.
yeah. But the reality is it's all theory. It's all guessing. We're all reading the same books and um, you know, just expanding on it and just asking more questions. And but all these little things that we do just make me totally believe that you know, we're capable of so much more, and where we live is so much more. And I just think there's a lid on what's going on, and only certain people know what's going on.
Yeah, I do agree with that completely. Like, there's just from our research alone, astrology,
Mm,
I think, is a
mm,
massive one that you can actually find out that there are some elites, like a lot of, billionaires have their own personal astrologer. And once
yeah,
upon a
yeah,
time, like astrology was taken so seriously and it was perceived just as serious as science is, you know.
yeah, absolutely,
And I think they definitely do play on that. They
yeah, absolutely,
um again, word magic, there's so
yeah,
much power in words. And I mean, when you
yes,
go down the whole etymology and language route, how much has been changed and hidden, and everything's inverted in the English language, and everything is reversed. And we know that frequency and vibration creates and manifests. We
mm,
have a vocal box in us that creates a vibration. We speak and then create. So, it makes a lot of sense when you look into the whole word magic and etymology and how they've inverted everything.
mm,
um like the word morning,
yes,
when you're in
yeah,
mourning, well, we're rising, we're not mourning. And when you go to a funeral, at a wake, is that because
yeah,
the spirit or your ancestor or whoever has passed away is woken up into the real world, and actually this is
yeah,
the fake world. So I don't know, it gets very, very interesting. And that's how my brain works on a daily basis. I can't watch things, I can't watch films without noticing. Like, I don't watch
no,
films the way normal people watch films, I don't think.
no, no, I don't
Do you find
either.
that?
And I can like, because when we went into our first lockdown, my dad gave me his Netflix login, and I literally, it's taken me, I only started watching stuff really this year on it. So it's taken me nearly a year to actually use it, because I would go on it and be like, I'll give it a go. 2 hours like of searching, like, oh, I can't watch that, can't watch that. Oh, I don't like him. Oh no, that guy's or whatever. Like, yeah, it ruins shit for you for quite a while, because I can't see things with the with the veil down anymore on certain
Yeah.
aspects, like the show. I can't watch the show without knowing it's a show. Like, I can't watch the news. I
Um,
read
yeah.
everything. Yeah, I read it, so I can, because I'm still, I struggle with emotional control, um, because I get very passionate about the fact that we're being screwed over, and there's some people that are basically dragging the rest of us down by, um, you know, going along with the rubbish. So, like, all these little desensitization and programming, like movies and, I just get, so yeah, I have to be very careful, especially with the news. I drip feed that to myself. I read that so I don't pop off. Um, God damn it, I wish I was more controlled, but I'm not. I think I'm amped up, obviously, because we're going through this as well. I
Yeah.
mean, I've been talking about it for years, but like now we're going through this, it's like everything is super amplified as well, so it just becomes a lot harder, um, when stupid things happen and people are like going along with it still. I'm like,
But are they going along with it, or is it just because they're so programmed? Because this is what I realized, right? They're so brainwashed, they're not aware. Like, they really have bought into the illusion. They really believe the narrative. And I'm not like specific talking about the COVID one,
no,
but like what
just
you
in
say,
general.
yeah, they like
Yeah,
just in general, like they really believe. Like, I
yeah,
look around now, like I'm like looking out my window, and I perceive things so differently in the world. Like, for me, I
yeah,
ran and in the back of my head, I know this isn't real. And
yeah,
I know a
yeah,
lot of people call me crazy. A lot of people think I'm crazy. And I've had a lot of people lately question my mental health because of the
oh
things
yeah,
I talk about. Because
yeah,
they're like, well, what do you mean? And then I had a conversation with someone a girl I used to go to school with, about how reality is subjective, you know, like my reality is not the same as your reality and we're not experiencing the same thing. And she thought I was really losing my mind when I was talking about that, because she couldn't comprehend what I was talking about. The fact that, you know,
Mm.
this psyop that we're going through isn't affecting me. I'm still going about my life like normal, you know, like my life hasn't really changed that much, apart from the fact that I'm probably at home more, which is really what I wanted anyway, because I'm quite an introvert.
Yeah,
So for me, it's worked out. I'm happier like this.
yeah,
But,
yeah,
you know, for her, it's had a very different like
effect.
reaction on her reality, you know. So, and that's what I was trying to explain, but she's like, but this is happening to everyone. And like, it's not happening to everyone,
Yeah,
you know. uh
yeah,
so yeah, that was
yeah.
like another thing. But it's like, yeah, again, like I look outside, I'm like, this, are the birds real, you know?
Come on now, we know the birds aren't real.
The birds are
We
robots,
know
aren't
the birds aren't real. That's where we draw the line. We know the birds aren't real. God
they?
damn them, God damn them birds. Um, man, yeah, I know what you're saying. Like I'm exactly the same. And I was out with my mate. We were out on his boat a couple of weeks back, and I was like, big spray. I bet you it rains tomorrow. And he's like, is that you think like this full time, eh? And I'm like, yeah, like, because that's my reality. Like I look up the cloud and I'm like, oh, that's not a cumulonimbus, that's a chemtrail, you know. And he's like, oh, you crack me up. But he gets it because he sees it. I opened his eyes just by constantly going, there's a big spray, we're probably going to rain, you know, just talking
Yeah,
like this. Because to me, that's our life, you know.
yeah,
And it's well, that's my life, how I see it. And now he sees a lot more, and it's cool because I have somebody to talk to in real life
yeah,
um, about it, because most people think I'm just crazy. And I'm cool with that. I own that shit. Like I do shit on purpose, because why not? Uh, but not if I'm trying to plead my case to somebody, because I don't want to go around convincing people of what I believe um, on the internet. Like I have the Instagram page, which is where we kind of hooked up, you know, like got in touch and met. You know, that's just my opinions that I post, and my thoughts, or what happens from my point of view. Um, I'm not like some people who I feel like this is what's happening, this is the facts. Like the fact is, we pretty much don't know really. We're all guessing. But I think we've all got an inkling that something isn't right. And I think um, it seems to be like the majority of people, because like the perception online from a global point of view, it's like with the current psyop, it's like they're working so hard to shut down the counter narrative, because there's so many people that seem to be waking up, if you will. So I don't know if that, you know, because some people think that you need certain amount of people to transcend, or um, raise the vibration, and I just think, man, when you find out, when you kind of find out the world's a lie, your vibe ain't high, you go through some sort of grieving death of the fact that you've just been lied to for everything.
yeah,
uh, that ain't a a vibe rise, that's a whole different energetic, you know. And some people can like real spiral um, into madness. Even online, I've watched a few people get so paranoid about everybody being an agent, or like people have ended up like in jail and things, um, and you or dead,
yeah,
and you watch this play out, and you're like, man, like So awakening, if you will, um, to me, awakening just means like learning that the show is a show,
Yeah.
and you know, finding out is like, yeah, that's not high vibing. It's not high vibing, in my
Yeah.
opinion.
Well, I think there's like like so many different paths that people have, like, my experience has been very different to a lot of other people's. When I started in 2012, I went through my path of self-remembrance, because I think this is all this is it's a remembrance. I think obviously our spirit knows. We come into
Yeah.
this world with amnesia, and to some extent, I don't know, I don't think the goal is to even remember while we're here. I don't think we're ever going to know until the day that we leave this realm.
I
um
agree.
yeah,
Mm,
we're never really going to know. However, like, we're aware that things aren't what they seem, and things aren't what they're telling us, and like you were saying, we're more than what we're being told, and there's a lot that's
mm,
being hidden. And I was the same, like when I started delving down the whole truth, the rabbit holes, and all these different topics, that's where my journey started. But then I also, my spiritual journey also started alongside that, and I feel
mm-hmm,
so grateful for that, because
mm,
my gosh, I would have gone down such, I don't know where I would probably would have ended up, because it was dark. It was very, very dark and very lonely. But because I had that spiritual aspect there that I kept coming back to reconnect, and actually the spiritual aspect helped me to fly above the forest, if you like, to see
yeah.
all the trees, rather than just being so stuck in the forest and seeing all the individual trees. Like, I
Yeah.
saw the bigger picture, and I saw a higher perspective, which really helped me, I guess, to carry on. But like
Mm,
you're saying, there are a lot of people that that's not their experience. They're just
no,
on the truther path and have no awareness or no recognition of their spiritual selves or their
mm,
spiritual connection. And I think
mm,
that's where they really struggle. And then also vice versa, you've got like these people that are on a really spiritual path. They have no clue that they're living in this reality that's lied to. They'll say that they're very spiritual and it's all love and light,
mm,
and yet they'll still think COVID's real. That
yeah.
confuses me. Like, that really
Yeah.
confuses me.
Or they'll be
um,
like, don't be negative. And you're like, but negative is part of who you are.
yeah, and how they
Um,
don't embrace the other side, because we live in a dualistic universe, right? So we have the
we
dark and
definitely
light here.
seem to. Yeah, we definitely, I mean, ultimately, I guess I don't know, like everybody has a different belief system and a different belief structure, like when it comes to that spiritual type thing, whether it be religious or like
Yeah.
you believe in a certain god or gods, or you believe, or whatever you believe in. But ultimately, it kind of seems like there's good and there's bad. And it feels like we're tipped towards the bad in the realm we live in. And I only say that because we ain't in no Garden of Eden here. Like, people are dying. So, people are getting bombed and people do evil shit. And the structure or system that has been created benefits some people but not others.
Yeah.
So it seems to be a darker realm on a big picture scale. I
Yes.
mean, don't get me wrong, some people have great lives, um, and are truly blessed, and good on them. But like as a whole, it does seem like we're shown a darker, like we're living in a, like the darker side has got control of the place.
Yeah, I
That's
agree
hopefully
with that.
me.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's also my perception as well.
Mm,
However, I don't think it's going to last forever, though, because I think what we're experiencing at the moment is a big reality split that I often talk
yes.
about, because that's what I'm currently experiencing. I don't know if that's something that you're feeling as well.
What's that?
Um, a
The
reality,
reality.
yeah, reality split. Like, I really
Mm,
feel,
mm,
there's people going down this way, a more dystopian kind of reality. The ones that
mm,
really believe in the psyop and the narrative, and then
yeah.
I feel like, there's you know, us, we're going to go down the more utopian route because we're so aware, we're more aware of what's going on. We want to change it. There's more of us starting to remember who we really are, like you're saying. There are more of us coming together, because that has been my experience. Like before 2020, I was on my own, like with all this information and all my experiences. I was completely on my own. I had a few people online that I spoke to. I had no one in my immediate physical reality at all. In 2020, that completely changed. I started to connect with so many conscious minds, and like, look how much you and I have even connected, you
I
know,
know, right?
how that's grown. We've become closer together, and I feel that's what it's I feel that's what's gonna, it's gonna form into that, basically. I feel like the conscious minds are gonna be sticking together more, because we are more aware and we are more willing and ambitious to create a new way. We're aware that the old structure is crumbling, you know, and that's, you know, let's just leave it there.
Yeah. Well,
Let's just
I
leave.
agree. I think like the narrative is like the dystopian future for those that follow that path. But when you read it, you know, like you've got people going, Agenda 2030 is like getting you into this. Yeah, it actually is doing all that.
Yeah.
But how they market it is like, it's amazing for the planet. And I believe that those that are want it to be, it will be that narrative for them. Like
Yeah.
I don't think that I'm going to suffer, but I think that some people are.
But like
I
you
just don't
say,
think it.
belief creates your reality, isn't it? So
Yes, yeah. So if they create the Agenda 2030 narrative, the good marketing narrative, that'll be my life. The conspiracy shit one, that will be like somebody else's life. It ain't going to be mine. Um, I'm addicted to letting people know about it.
yeah.
This is where I think people get me a little bit wrong. However, that's not my life. Like, we're just been locked, like I say, we've just gone straight back into lockdown now, but that doesn't affect my life. Like, the only way, that's a lie, God. I can't go and visit my relatives who I was supposed to be, because I was supposed to be going to a hui this weekend.
Yes, you said that.
That will be cancelled now, because now the military have blocked off the Auckland borders. Well, they will be blocked off by 6 a.m. So that affects me. But as in my day to day, like that doesn't affect my life whatsoever.
Yeah.
You know, so that's not my life. But do I like to talk about it and stuff? Of course I do, because that's what's actually happening. That's what's trying to be pushed. But it won't. It will be the good marketing, in my opinion, the good marketing spiel. That's the one that wins.
Yeah.
The shit one, no. That's the timeline to me that splits off, and that's not part of. That's not where I'm going. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also watched a video of yours, actually, when you talked about manufactured awakening.
Yeah. Because this is why I was wondering, is a certain type of energy required for something? Because everything seems to be about energy manipulation. Good and bad is still good energy, good vibes, bad vibes.
Yeah.
So the manufactured awakening came to me, was kicked off by Trump. I think that under the Great Awakening banner, because when he got pre-Q, just Trump in general, Q came off that, but like pre him winning that election, and becoming like Trump and fake news and that guy, and then which spawned the QAnon and the deep state and the Pizzagate and all those conspiracy rabbit holes. That was pretty much Trump that started that whole Great Awakening. And I think that obviously was a script that he was a character he was to play. But I don't understand, like, I don't understand because it did manufacture an awakening.
Yeah.
And some people went further and really woke up past the show, and others stayed in that cue Trump saving us show.
Yeah.
So not everybody awoke, but it definitely, in my opinion, was the start of the worldwide awakening from an online perspective to watch it online. I mean, I'm not flying to America and going, everybody's awakening, or flying to, London where you are and going, yeah, look at everybody waking up. I mean, I'm only seeing this online. It could be complete bullshit.
Yeah.
I don't know,
No,
So,
I understand exactly what you're saying, because also that has been my experience as well. From obviously seeing other people. Why do you think that they would why do you think they would try and wake people up? Because I mean, look, I'm not going to go into the views of Trump, but look, he was selected. People
yeah,
he got in and to save the world, whatever, yeah. But he was selected for that role. You
yes,
don't get to that position without
yeah,
being part of something, yeah. So this was the first thing for me.
yeah,
But then it's like, why? Because exactly like you said, a lot of people did wake up at that point and
yeah.
went past the psyop. They made their way past the psyop. So it's like,
Yeah.
why did they do that?
Yeah, and that's why I'm thinking, did they need, like, because I think Trump was kind of put there to start this whole civil war type thing to break down America, divide and conquer.
Right,
Because
yeah.
it's probably the most divided I've ever seen the country in views from a political point of view once Trump was elected. I mean,
Yeah.
you've always had your left and rights or whatever, but that spawned a whole new thing. Like, it was its whole beast, like, all of a sudden people in New Zealand were like Trump people. And I'm like, what? Like, people who'd not given a shit. When is your own country been walking around with MAGA hats and crap? Like, honestly, it was a full blown thing. And I'm like, holy crap. It was like, it was movement.
Yeah.
And it was a worldwide one. So to me, it was like a like it was a divide and conquer strategy to get extreme division for what was further about to play out down the line.
Yeah.
But it kind of, like, I don't know whether it just took off on its own because people are so unpredictable. Like, it might have only supposed to been like a minuscule amount of people waking up. And then all of a sudden it was like a friggin' steam train or snowball or whatever, because, like, all of a sudden it was worldwide. Like,
Or
I think,
maybe it was the fact that they wanted to create a false awakening to
yeah,
gain as many people as they could to stop the real awakening, to then have them loop back in a circle back to the mind control, if you know what I mean, which is basically what happened with the whole Q thing. That was a psyop, and loads of people fell for that. They thought they were awake, and look what happened.
yeah. It's heartbreaking to be so convinced. Like, this is another reason why some people just choose to pull the blinkers on, I think, is because it's embarrassing for them to be so passionate about something like wear the goddamn mask or Trump saving the world, and then find out that it's bullshit, and then have to be like, oh my God, I was actually conned. Like,
Yeah.
the pride and ego thing for some people is too much. They'd rather live the lie, um, and pretend, and still pretend that Trump's saving the world, or,
Yeah.
whatever. Because it's just so embarrassing for their ego to think that they were wrong, and they hang on to the things that were correct, like the Democrats are pieces of shit. But, so are the Republicans. But, you
Yeah.
know, it's just something to hold on to so you don't, so you keep your ego in check, I guess. But to me, Trump was definitely about division. Um, the manufactured awakening, I think, helps with the reset. portion of the Agenda 2030 type, getting everybody AI on an AI control grid system, and so forth. I think
It's
it's
very
all about.
interesting, the video that you did about Bill Gates creating a virus, an antivirus for your computer, how many of it, like 30 years ago, whenever it was, and now he's coming up with a vaccination for real viruses for humans. I thought that was a very interesting video.
Yeah, and that's where you have those lifetime characters with word association and things like that. So you would associate Bill and virus. We've been associating those two words forever, like since Microsoft, like when was that? I don't actually know. I know, was it the 90s or something? I don't know. When it became a big hit. And so it's like you got your Microsoft Windows and you got your antivirus software, So Bill and virus are words that we've grown up with. And now we're going through this massive psychological operation, and those same words keep popping up. Bill and virus, it's like they don't change. That's what he is, Bill Virus. So, it's like that script loop thing where it's the same thing, just transferred.
Yeah. Yeah, they
These are
changed
really
the
good
narrative, but it's
examples.
still the same. It's
Word
still,
association.
yeah, it's so interesting that, and there's a lot of people that feel as well, he's a lot of blame goes on to Bill Gates, and it always makes me feel like a little bit cringe, because I'm like, but he's not real, like he's just
Yeah,
an
he's
actor,
not the
he's just a
human.
character, like you're
Yeah,
falling for it,
yeah. So, I mean, he is the character, the bad guy. He's the Dr. Evil. So
yeah,
everybody can focus on him. Dr. Evil buying up all the land, blocking out the sun, injecting you with nanoparticles, owning the education system. Like the dude's name's on everything. So he's Dr. Evil. He's the, stroking the cat, doing that. He's our guy. But he's not really our guy, but he's the guy.
yeah,
It's like that, when they did that Me Too with Harvey Weinstein. Of course, he was a dodgy prick, but he wasn't the guy. He's
yeah,
just the guy that we get to focus on.
yeah. Do you ever
You know,
think about, because back into our research, they don't throw you under the bus like that unless you've done something to piss them off. Yeah.
yes,
So the whole like
yeah,
Harvey Weinstein thing, that really got me curious. Everyone's sitting there thinking, oh, what a dirty pen, which I'm sure he did a lot of fucked up stuff. But I'm
yeah.
sitting there thinking, fuck, what did he do that they've thrown him under the bus? Because let me tell you,
What do you really
there's
do? Yeah,
more of him. There's more of him and worse that
yeah.
people
Oh,
don't
yeah,
even know about.
yeah,
Um, so that always makes me think as well, because that was part of my research, that if you wronged them, or you wanted to get out of the society, or you didn't do something that they said, they told you to do, um, they discredit you in heavily in the media, or your reputation gets fucked or something like that. Yeah, so
yeah, yeah. I would say everybody's compromised some in some way, like that pedophilia stuff. You can see how that would start, like, say, like if you think about musicians, it'd be like the 18-year-old girls become 16-year-old girls, become 13-year-old girls, become, you know what I mean? Like, and you don't notice that. I mean, honestly, some of these girls, they are hard to put an age on. Not that I'm condoning anything, but you can see how they'll get younger than younger than younger than younger and younger, and then you can compromise someone with that. And
yeah,
then all of a sudden they're doing exactly what you need because they're compromised.
yeah,
You can blackmail them to the hilt. And I think those people like the Weinsteins and that, I don't believe that they're like bloodlines. They are fall guys. They are dispensable characters
yeah,
that can be like flicked to take the fall for the bigger players, because the ones that we see on the stage as the big players aren't the big
I
players.
know. Yeah, this is what people don't get, Claire, you know.
Yeah, yeah,
We
yeah.
don't know who is actually control. Like if you really want to go down that route, I'm going to say that the darkness that controls this realm, or these narratives, or this system that we're in, I don't believe is human. But to go really right to the top of the bloodlines, who are really orchestrating everything, we don't know them. We don't see them. The ones we
But
see are literally just scapegoats.
they're the show that we watch on the screen, and you know, we think like, you know, when they even like it's even known that the people they publish in like the rich list aren't the richest people, or they're just the people that we know of, you know. And that's what I was saying earlier about like when you're at school and you're sitting in an assembly and your principal is talking to you. Um, so if you think of him as the president or the prime minister in the real world, you know that behind them is a board of your principal, there's a board of directors
Yeah,
that you never see. So the principal is standing there calling the shots like he's the man, but really there's a board of directors behind him control that you never see. And it's the same with the world. So the people that you see, like the Queen and all that, they're not they're not shit. They're just the people that we see.
yeah.
Uh,
They're the
I
faces.
yes, and I think that you're absolutely on the money. I think the real, I'm just going to say people, even though I don't believe they are either, pulling the strings are like supernatural.
Yeah,
They're not. They're not anything that we have seen, touched, anything. We don't like. It's like I still believe it's like you could say, you know, God and the devil, whatever. You could say archons. You could say whatever you actually believe in. But my belief is definitely um, good and bad. You know, evil and light. I believe there's two entities, and the dark one is what is trying to run this realm through psychological operations.
yeah,
Um, and I think that some of the people that are the humans that are here are trapped in these meat suits, um, have the power to overturn that and change the realm and balance it more out. So it's not tipped one way or the other.
yeah,
It's a nice, balanced, harmonic resonance, and we can all vibe really cool in it. But at the moment, I feel like it's tipped
mm,
towards the dark, and the dark are using really degenerate and horrible shit, and it's working. And yeah, and that is all manipulated through the players on the stage via the players on the stage that we see. That's
yeah,
kind of like how I see things at this point. Like just at this point in time, it could change in the morning. I could get new information and go, oh, you know, because like I have really, really torn myself apart with that NPC thing. That's like real people and not real people. That's a real mind bender for me.
yeah. Because I have asked a few people, you know, have you ever met an NPC? How do you know you've met an NPC?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't. I can't say I have. I have never had that feeling that, oh, that's not a real person, or that's a real person but they don't have a soul.
I've definitely thought that that's not a real person. I've had heaps of those. Like
Really?
there was a time when I definitely was down with the whole some people, some of us are real and some aren't. And
Maybe I haven't met enough people. I like to avoid people.
yeah, Same, but I used to have I used to be a barber, have my own business, like my shop. So I used to like talk to a new person like every 20 minutes.
Oh wow, yeah.
And, some people, like all my customers seem real, but some of them were heavily programmed, like so programmed it was just
Yeah.
retarded. But, I have been out and about and questioned real people, um, like from a targeted point of view, like
Yeah.
whether things have been sent to you, you know.
I've had experiences with Agent Smiths.
Yes, so
I've
have I.
had experiences with that. But what I feel that is that's like an archon or a dark energy coming into the body of someone with a spirit. That was
Like,
my perception of what happened.
like taking over it, like using them as a host.
Yeah, using them as a host to do whatever they want to try and get to me. I've had like other
Yeah,
entities, like I've had experiences with other entities and spirits as well, good
yes,
and bad. So yeah, for me, I just kind of felt like that. So yeah, I think they try and go through people to attack me because I'm very sensitive and I hate confrontation. So I think they play on that. So I've had those experiences, like you say,
yes,
they treat the body as a host.
yeah. Do you, I don't know, did you want to expand on some of your experiences? Because that fascinates me because people don't like to talk about it though. And I'm cool if you don't, like, you don't have to share shit because I know that it's personal and sometimes it can be scary. And sometimes if you haven't protected yourself and you talk about it. So don't talk about scary stuff, I guess.
Oh no, I had one very, very terrifying experience. And it was the moment that I realized the difference between fear and terror. Because for
Right.
a long time I was just like, oh, terror is just like fear, isn't it? Like, unless you've experienced the difference between different emotions, like you don't really know. But well,
Yeah.
yeah. So I was living somewhere else a few years ago. This is like 3 4 years ago. No, 3 years ago this happened. And I woke up during the middle of the night and my body was hovering above the bed and my
All
body
right.
was vibrating, like a bit like
Yeah.
how
Like
your phone
astral
vibrates.
travel.
It was internally vibrating. What did you say?
Like astral travel.
I was awake. I was here. Like I was in this realm,
Yeah.
and the bed was here, and my body was just like that, and it was like
Yeah.
zzz, zzz. Like I wasn't moving, like I wasn't really moving or floating, but it was like it felt
Yeah.
like my body was vibrating all over, like from inside. It felt like it was vibrating, like a subtle vibrate feeling. Um, and then my consciousness was taken somewhere to another realm while I was still here. So this is like the craziest part to try and describe, because unless you've really experienced that, it's very difficult to try and describe being in two places at once.
Yep.
Because I was very much aware that I was still here in my
Mhm.
Alex form, in my body form,
Mhm.
in this realm on Earth, but my consciousness had been taken somewhere else, and I was then in a different
Yeah.
body. And I had a sword in my hand in this other realm, and it is like I'd been taken there because I had to fight something. There was something that I had to fight or battle. And I saw it was like this little being, this like little witch. It felt like a witchy being. Yeah. It was like a female. It was like really short. It had like olivey skin, really short, dark hair. And it was like right at the end of a cave or a tunnel. I had to walk down this, there was like this massive arch within a mountain, or it was in like loads of rock, right? So I had to like walk down this arch, this tunnel, and right at the, like, it was so far, but like, and also the sword that I was carrying had light around the sword, and people laugh and say he was carrying a lightsaber. No, it wasn't a lightsaber, it was actually a sword with like light
Yeah.
radiating around it. Anyway, I guess it was similar to the sword that like He-Man uses.
Oh yeah, yeah,
If you want
yeah,
to compare
yeah.
it to anything, it was like that. It was like a silver sword, but the light was white around it.
Hmm.
Anyway, so I'm walking down, and it's lighting up my path, and I can see this being at the other end. She has her back to me, and I thought, I got this. I just thought like I'm light, and I remember just feeling like I'm pure light, like I know I'm good, like I'm on the good side, like I'm gonna
Yeah.
win. And I knew what I was gonna battle was darkness, something
Yeah.
dark.
Okay.
Anyway, I didn't even get halfway down the tunnel, this cave, and the being turns around, and as soon as she turns around, she stood right here, right in front of my face. Like, there was no walking.
Oh God, yeah,
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 she didn't have to walk down. It was like the moment she just turned around, and then she was like in my face. It was just crazy. And then she was staring at me, but she was doing something, and I was paralyzed. And I don't know what she was. It wasn't so much how she looked, it was what she was doing with her eyes into my
oh,
eyes was terrifying. I just immediately felt this terror. And I was like, the moment she turned around, I was like, fuck, I've lost. I'm not going to win this. Like, I just immediately thought I'm not strong enough. And then I got brought back to my body, dropped on the bed, and I felt such intense terror, because what I realized was there was a being in my room, like, and I could only see the shadow. I couldn't see the being, but it was massive, and it was in the corner of my room, and it was so big that it was hunched over the ceiling, and it was massive, and it was dark, dark, dark energy, like really dark, and I was terrified. And this is like, I'm on my own, and I rang my partner, who I didn't live with at the time, and I rang him, and I was like, just tell him all of it. And then I remember just like putting the covers over me and curling up like a ball. And I remember just feeling like I was 6 years old again, being scared of nightmares. You know,
oh
like
my
it was
God,
like
that's
that feeling.
terrifying.
That was the most terrifying experience I've ever had. I used to have like a lot more when I was little. I used to have like a lot of experiences. I used to like have this one shadow being that used to follow me every night and just used to like sit and stare at me, because I used to wake up during the night, and then when I used to blink, it used to get closer and closer, and then I just get so scared I used to just cover myself. um
Were
and
they little?
yeah, that one was little. When I was little, yeah, when I was like younger and it happened, they were like, it was like a little shadow being.
I had a little shadow when I was little. That's why I asked if it was little.
Yeah, it was little.
Same thing. And that thing that you said about the witch, when they turned around, that's what would happen with the shadow. Like I could go, is that a and go close my eyes and open it, would be, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? And same thing. And yeah, that shit used to freak me
Yes,
out. But I
same.
never had like a sleep paralysis, or I can lucid dream, but I've never had an astral travel. I've never had a sleep paralysis or anything like that. Um, but those the shadow people, 100%.
I've had sleep paralysis 3 times when I was
Oh my
younger.
God,
When I
that
was
sounds
like,
terrifying to me.
yeah, it really is, because it does it. Yeah, it's not, it's the freakiest thing. Like, it's so scary. Like, because and the thing is, it's not just the fact that you can't move and that you're fully awake. It's the fact that you feel a darkness. You can feel it.
Yeah.
Like, you can feel there's something there doing that to you. That's
Oh
the
yeah.
thing. Because a lot of like
Yeah.
scientists and psychologists will say, oh yeah, a lot of people experience that they feel like it's a bad feel, they feel like it's negative. No, seriously, like, there's a being there, man. Like, and I'm very, like, if there's one thing that I've learned over the years, my gift is that I'm so intuitive, and I can feel things. Like, I
Mm.
have there's some entities here sometimes, like in the flat
Yeah.
that I'm in now, but they don't feel bad, and they feel to
Yeah.
me that they're like more human spirits.
Yeah.
um One loves to follow me around, but not to
Yeah.
scare me, just
Yeah.
intrigue
Just to
or
be.
loneliness. Yeah, it creeps me out, do not get me wrong. I don't feel fear though, because I don't feel like it's something that I should be fearful of. It doesn't feel like a darkness. It is creepy. And I've had like poltergeist activity here from that same being. I don't know whether they just like to know, they like to show me that they're here. I can't feel if it's male or female though, that particular
Do
one.
you speak to it, the
No,
entity?
no, I don't. So I don't speak to it. I speak about it, and like when it's here, for example. And it's always when I'm on my own as well. Like, although I did have a weird experience when my partner was here, and I was in the kitchen and he was in the bedroom, and all the lights were on, and for like 30 seconds all the lights went off and then came back on again, and I was like, Did you see that? Like, was that you? And he didn't even notice that. So it was like that just happened to me. I've had the washing basket fly across the room.
Yeah.
Like it was just thrown like that across the room, like randomly.
That's full like entity stuff, like
I've had the iPad in the room was off, as in like it was like fully charged. It wasn't like off as in like switched off, but it wasn't in use. We weren't using it. And just before my partner came back, because this is one of the days that this is another day that I sensed something was here, and I was like, it creeps me out. So I'm like, I call him like, when are you going to come back? Like, you're going to come back soon? Because there's something here. And I'll tell him, and he always tells me, put a candle on. They want to go to the light. They want to go to the candle. Just put a candle on. So I always do that now. Like when he tells me to do that. Anyway, and then the iPad came on. Like the iPad switched on. I've had one of the most recent experiences that I had was I had a purple being. This is like one of the first beings that I've seen with my own eyes. Like I could describe every detail to you. I woke up during the night and I saw a purple being scanning my partner's body. He was asleep next to me in bed. Yeah, and he had like this round thing. Like, do I have it was like a black round cylinder thing. Okay, imagine I'm just holding this. This is like,
yeah.
And he was scanning over his body like this, like,
holy shit.
Yeah. But he felt like I didn't even feel scared because there was so much love. I immediately felt this is a higher realm being. He was really tall, like again, he was very lanky, and he had purple skin, and he had an upside down triangle head. Like that's not even a triangle. How do I do it? Like I can't even. Yeah, it was like that. Upside down triangle head.
Like
yeah, so that's another thing that someone told me, because I'd never seen that being before. I didn't know what it was, and it had like huge almond shaped eyes, like huge, and it was like a green color I'd never seen before, like a real emerald deep green color of his eye. Tiny, like almost non-existent nose, like tiny little, just had like little holes, and a really small mouth. And he was wearing a robe. It was like it was almost like purple, white, and gold are the colors I remember seeing, like a really long white robe. He had such skinny arms, like really like, and really long fingers, and like he had like this, like he didn't have this.
Wow.
And I don't think he expected me to wake up, because he was doing like, and I always say to my partner, I'm like, he was here for you. He came for you. Like he wasn't there for me. I just happened to wake up and see him.
Yeah.
And that was a male. Like I could feel that was a male being. Anyway, yeah, that was male. And then he stopped doing what he was doing, because he obviously noticed that I'd woken up, and he leant over my partner. He leant over and he came right up to my face like that. And he
shit yourself? Did you
no, he telepathically was like, he telepathically said to me, I love you. And he
really?
Yeah, and he touched his cheek to mine and then disappeared. And then he must have done something to me when he touched my cheek, because I immediately fell back asleep, and I never fall asleep like that. When I wake up, I'm up. I'm a really light sleeper. Yeah. And I remember feeling like I remember feeling my eyelids were just heavy after seeing him, and I fell back asleep. And when I woke up in the morning, I told my partner. Yeah. That was like, he was like, really, what was he doing? What did he look like? He was like so curious.
Yeah, because I was tested on as a child.
Yeah.
Taken out of school, and we were like doing they even filmed us, and I've tried to get copies of the TV show and have been like blocked at every thing. And all the other episodes of the TV show, it would have been 1979. Online, I've written to TV New Zealand, I've written to the Kaleidoscope, I've got all the emails. They're blocking me. And so I was taken out of school with a couple of other kids, and we went to TVNZ. We went underground into the basement, and we were doing just like singing and throwing and that, catching balls and things like that. We were there like all week, but when it showed on TV, it was the smallest portion. It was like 5 minutes. And I remember my mum and dad videotaped it, and then my dad bloody taped over it with football. So, I never had a copy of it, but they did like like getting us to do telepathic and telekinesis and stuff like that. And then, filming it and shit. And I've tried to find since I went through that whole homeless thing a couple of years back, I lost like everything. But some of the stuff that I got in storage, I've just went through not that long ago, and I've got one of my old like photo albums, and it's got my picture of me in that class, and I can see two of the dudes are in that school photo that were in that testing with me. And I've thought about like trying to track them down via the internet.
You should.
But I'm too scared to also, because like from a targeted point of view, like what was that all about? Like, why am I getting blocked from trying to find it? We were doing freaky shit and being filmed, like mum and dad weren't even, like when I speak to mum and dad about it, they don't remember signing any consent forms or anything like that, like nothing to take me out of school and do all that shit, So
that is very interesting, because that's almost like someone or a group of people from quite high up knew what you were.
Well, this is the thing, because I've been targeted since birth. Like my birth was very crazy. When I was born.
Do you ever think your parents aren't who they say they are?
Yeah.
Because the other thing with working, you'll say that your mum had a mortuary.
She was a mortician, an embalmer, etc. So she worked with the dead. And when I was born, I always knew that I was born, and then so the doctor, you might want to edit this bit out, this is a bit TMI. So the doctor basically broke my hymen at birth, and then said to my mum she shouldn't even be alive. And then mum said he injected a big needle straight into my fontanelle with something. And I said, well, what did he inject me with? And she said, I don't know. I was like, what? And then I was like, is that because I'm Rh negative? And she didn't comment on that. But I think both my parents are Rh negative, right? Because normally if one's a positive, they would give you that injection so the baby isn't rejected from the mother's body.
Yeah, so my mum's negative.
Yeah, so this happened after my birth. I was injected. He said that. And then I was moved into like this freak ward. And mum said there was a couple of other women in there. One had a baby with a full fucking Cleopatra hairdo. Another baby had a full set of teeth. There was another one, but I can't remember what that freak show was. And me. And she said, and I was also born with a massive birthmark at the top of my thigh that was massive. And it was like, she said, it had hairs like somebody had gone over it with a mower, and they were all standing up. She said, by the time I left hospital, that was gone. And of course, so then I was tested on. I had the whole, I've had the pedophile thing. Then I was tested on. Then
I've had the pedophile thing.
So basically I was pedophile groomed before I started school. So, and then when I started school, I went straight into that testing shit. And then
that sounds like some MK Ultra stuff, what you're saying.
This is what I'm thinking. So this is what started me on my journey. This is what I was saying, when you say, oh, what made you think? I'm like I've always thought because of all this random shit. And then
The fact that your mum is around dead people, because there's a lot of a lot
yeah.
of elite people or people in these societies, they own mortuaries,
Well, my uncle who recently passed was a high-ranking Freemason. I don't know what degree he was, but when I was at his funeral, so he was kind of like my father, and when he passed away, so his funeral was televised and shit, like overseas and that, and he was pretty well connected, and like this dude spoke about him as being the supreme leader, and I never knew any of this, right? And until like, so he passed in 2017, so that's when I found out a lot of that. And then my auntie, his wife, passed away 4 months later, so back to back. They were basically my parents. And not long after that is when I became I became homeless and got screwed over and put out on the street. And then um, that's when the church stepped in, like that random church. And I was talking to another person, a friend of mine who I have met via Instagram, and she was like, "What church?" I had to look it up. So it's a Baptist church, and they are basically looking after me. And I'm like, and I'm staying in this fucking gulag situation. It's so crazy.
Are you close with your parents?
Pardon?
Are you close with your parents?
No, I do not speak to my mother or my sister after they stole all my money and put me on the street.
And your dad?
I speak to my dad. We have picked up sort of a relationship since I became that, my mum and my sister fucked me over. And it's quite interesting because our relationship's changed a bit as well. Like, because prior to that, it was kind of like my auntie and uncle who died back to back. They were kind of like my parents. They looked after me. I dragged myself up, um, and to be fair, like, I have been a very self-destructive person because of all this crazy shit that's happened to me, and you can't speak about it because you sound like a friggin' nutter. Like, what am I supposed to say? Oh yeah, I was tested on when I was 5. I was dragged out of school for a week for it. And then I
Were
was
you,
filmed,
do you
you
ever
know.
have any recollection of being asked at a young age if you wanted to join something?
Yeah. So Scientology was one, which was really weird. They kind of came after me when I was a teenager, and like about 3 times. And I was with my best friend all 3 times. And she was like, "What is it with these bloody Scientologists and you?" And I'm like, "I don't know." And then I've had a few witch covens try and get me to join their circles. Like, this is all completely unprovoked. Um, Even on Instagram, when people will just attach themselves to me and try and tell me who I am. And I'm like, fuck off, mate. You're crazy. I don't think I'm anything except targeted. I definitely think I'm
Yeah, but there's
targeted.
a reason. There's a reason. There must be a reason.
Well, because I suffer from complex post-traumatic stress syndrome disorder, when I had that major trauma happen to me a couple of years ago, it triggered off, and now I'm in this fucking gulag. It triggered off a major trauma episode for me, and my brain feels like somebody took it out, gave it a bit of a scramble like a Rubik's Cube, and popped it back in. And I'm struggling to put things together again. Like sometimes, like tonight, I'll be talking, but it will be like I'll be here, then I'll be here, then I'll be here, then I'll be here again, and then I'll go back to there. It's like all the cognition and everything has gone strange.
Yeah.
And I've been trying to put it back together the last 2 years with the help of like some really cool professionals that the church is paying for, the God Squad, who were helping me. And,
Have
you
you
know,
ever
so that's
thought?
another thing.
Have you ever thought? Well, maybe like because I know that you said that you were going to be trying to integrate into a Maori tribe. Have you never gone to like an elder? And
No, I haven't. And,
have
but
you ever done
this,
plant medicine?
have I what? Sorry?
Ever done plant medicine?
Yeah, yeah, 100%. I have a naturopath and everything. So, yeah, I always do all that. But I've not done like any plant sort of rituals, like, ayahuasca or anything like that. I mean, I've tried kava and that, but I've never done anything. But this is all so rando. So, like I say, I've just got back from down the line where that herbalist naturopath invited me to this hui, asked if I had any Maori blood in me, and said we will just whangai you in. And I'm like, what? So these are the random things that happen, and they're all like at these weird. They're all like weirdly spiritual. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's not like oh, I got into a car accident the other day or something. It's like, oh no, this fucking witch coven is trying to get me, like stalking me. Or, I'm getting gang stalked technologically by the telecommunications company, or I'm flagged on my passport and I'm detained in every single country for a shakedown for no fucking reason. Just all these little things. And I have to go to the Crown to challenge every single one, like flag wise. Just the rando things like I do. Like I told you, I introduced internet into the mainstream residential market in New Zealand as a qualified hairdresser, no other qualifications. Just these random things that happen to me. I'm not saying that I'm
But they're
special
not
or anything.
random. They're not. I don't think
I
they're
know,
random. But I
but
think they're
they're,
random to you
they're
because
all weird.
there's disconnects, there's some stuff missing. That's why it
Yes,
feels random, but I don't feel like
yeah.
it is.
And it's these kind of chats that people invite me on that but really I don't know anything. Like you'll ask me questions and I'm just like, I don't fucking know. I read some shit and this is what I think about it. But really, my real thing is what the fuck is going on here? Because with me, I mean, and that may sound a bit narcissistic, but that's my journey to finding out why has this happened? How
Yeah.
many other people were injected straight into the fontanelle at birth and thrown into the freak? Like, seriously, how many other people were tested on? How many other people, like just this random shit, man. And to me, um, yeah, like you say, it's not random, and I believe it's not random too. And I'm just trying to work it out. And the people that I've connected with on the internet, there's people that I've connected with, and it's like they just feel like family to me. I've never fucking met them only like this, but they feel so familiar, and I feel more at home with them than own family members. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And all these crazy experiences could mean absolutely nothing. They could just mean that I'm in the right place and I should be sectioned. But I don't. This is how my whole journey is all because of this kind of stuff. And I want to know what the hell's going on, you
Yeah.
know? And all this other shit like posting about actor-based reality and wake the fuck up, dumbo, is basically just a hobby. But the real thing for me is what's going on? Who
Yeah.
are we? Why are you coming after me? Go away. Why does this shit happen? I know it doesn't just happen to me because I'm meeting fellow people online with similar stories.
Yeah.
And I know there's a tribe of us all. And if that helps me get closer to what the hell's going on, um, I'm good with that because it's just like this, like most of the shit that I find out like that. like when I was talking about lucid dreaming, like that's just something I've always been able to do and didn't know it was a thing until I was in my late 20s. And I was talking to a good friend of mine. My sister was with me, and we were talking about a dream or something. And she said, because she can lucid too, and she was like, oh, yeah, blah, blah, blah. And I thought, fuck this. So I changed it. And I was like, oh, yeah, because, like if things start to go bad in the dream, I'll be like, not today, pal. Let's change this. And my friend was like, what? Hold up. And then told us about lucid dreaming and how it was a thing, and that some people go to schools to learn that shit. And
Yeah.
my sister and I just have always thought it to be normal,
No.
So little things like that. And you'll go, ah. And then, like how I struggle with electronics, and then finding out that from an RH negative point of view, that can affect electronics, like how automatic doors don't open for you, and you can't wear watches because they never keep the time, and you can move the mouse without even touching it, like from your hand above, go like that over the mouse, and it can move around the screen, and just things like that. And that's all like RH negative shit. And I'm like, so just these are the kinds of things that intrigue me. And then you find out things like that off-planet aspect to RH negatives. And then there was that post I posted about Aborigines, how their DNA has a genome that is, they don't call it off-planet with the Aborigines though. They say it's on planet, but another unidentified human. So whereas with RH negative, they say alien,
Yeah.
So yeah, just these are the kind of things that have sent me on my journey, totally intrigue me. And I find other people on the through social media and the likes, like we either gravitate. It's all been organic.
Yeah.
Was
it's like how we met.
I think so. Maybe via Drew. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
Through the based reality thing, but definitely on social media through Instagram is where,
and the Discord as well.
Well, that was from Instagram. I only went on that one time.
Oh, how funny. That's the time I met you though.
Is it?
Yeah.
That's the only time I ever went on it. The only other times I've been on it is twice when I've been on Drew's talk show thing.
Yeah.
But other than that, that is the only time. That one time.
Yeah, that's
and
crazy.
You were on it.
Yeah, that's how we met. And then we connected on Instagram.
Yeah. So that's it. And so those kind of meetings, and then some people I meet and they're clearly like, we ain't vibing. Like seriously not vibing. I'm just like, yeah, you're a whole different level to me. Like some people are so like too freaky for me, and some people, like people in my real life think I'm just like out there.
Yeah.
But some of these people I've met on the internet, I'm like, whoa, but I'm fascinated by that.
Yeah, same.
Because there's probably a backstory that they don't want to talk about, or that they keep under wraps. That is what, like why, and I'm just fascinated by that,
Yeah.
I don't care about your mortgage. I don't care about your job. I don't care about your taste in music. I want to know that kind of shit, that freaky shit that you're going, what? Oh my God. And then you realize that we are more than what we are told we are, because you're seeing friggin' big giant entities in your room, and I'm being gang stalked by freaks. So it's like, there's more to life than
then this society, and this is what I'm saying, this is what I never resonated with growing up. I was like, none of this makes sense. Why we have to go to school? Why do we have to get a degree? Why do we have to get a house? Why do we have to get married? Why do I have to have kids? None of that resonated. Like honestly, I was always always seeking more, always curious, like constantly curious. And now I'm super curious about your journey, because to me, I think there's stuff that's been hidden from you.
Oh,
You
completely.
need to, I
And
feel like
I
you need to go and
struggle.
you need to go see one of these elders in the
Well,
tribes.
that's what I was been doing, supposed to be going to this weekend, but now again, like every time
Been
this is what I
stopped.
mean. It's stopped. So now the borders have been closed up. I ain't going anywhere for 7 days. So now I'm not going to that thing, that hui this weekend down in Havelock North that I was supposed to be going to. That's canned now as of tonight, because we've just been put back into lockdown. So
Yeah.
these are the kind of barricades that happen to me when I am just getting to, oh, I'm going to finally go and do that, and then something like this will happen and stop it. And this happens all the time to me. It's like something stops it from happening.
Yeah.
And I'm like, am I making that happen out of fear because I don't want to find out, or is that just like happening? Like, have
Like
I
someone's
mean,
blocking you.
yeah,
Almost like someone doesn't want you to find out the truth about
yeah,
yourself.
yeah. I feel like I'm being stopped because I constantly get barricades and I get tipped down random experiences like the one I'm in right now. It's
Yeah.
crazy to me, I'm like, oh, like it's weird, but I enjoy the ride. It's like, oh, okay, whatever. This is how it is. Like, let's roll with it. Let's see what happens.
Yeah.
I don't have children or anything like that. So there's only me to watch out for. So I'm quite, I'll take risks that some people won't take because they have responsibilities like children or whatever, where I'm just like, okay, let's do that, see what happens. And, I'm like that meme, if I die, I die. Like, seriously, what's the point in living if you're just going to be boring? Like, take the risk, see what happens.
But
What's the
death,
worst?
death is another thing that I think has been lied to us. Like death.
Absolutely. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Um, Big time. And having a mother who's worked in death and been around dead bodies and shit most of my life, growing up around death and all that. Yeah, yeah. And being quite fascinated too with the different cultures, the way they are about death and
Yeah.
their ceremonies or how they go about things.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like we
Mm.
have so much more to delve into and talk about, but I'm
Yes,
just being mindful of the time.
yes. It's very late here. It's 1:15 in the morning.
Oh my God.
So yeah, um,
But we should
yeah,
carry this on another time, because there's so many other things that I wanted to
absolutely.
touch on. Like I want to
Mm,
touch on what it's like growing up for you in New Zealand, obviously having exposure to tribal culture and plus
yeah,
Western culture. So you're growing up in a place where it has both, which to me
yeah,
is crazy. Like that's a crazy concept. I was born in such a Western world with no exposure to tribal culture, and yet I was still drawn from a young age, so drawn to tribal culture and tribal living. So that I really want to touch on, and obviously your experiences with the Maori tribe, and because I know that you have had a few experiences with Maori tribe.
most New Zealanders do. It's part of your upbringing.
Yeah.
It definitely is a dual culture from my point of view,
Yeah,
the way I've experienced it. So yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
would love to.
I mean, and I can talk like forever. So
And I can question forever.
there we go. So yeah, and like I've got nothing to hide, and I don't really give a toss about like I'm quite open because how do we find out? How do we learn from each other? Um, how do we find out what's really going on if we don't question and be open and honest? So I'm more than happy to catch up and like chew the fat and see what we come up with. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I'd love that. We are like the pieces of the puzzle for each other, you know.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
that's what I think. Like, because even though we're spread out all across, the experiences are all very similar,
Yes.
um, even if they are coming from a different perspective. The
Yeah.
experience, like, it's almost like we're being dealt the same hand, but we're all just like, it's how we play it. Do you know
Yeah.
what I mean? Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what I'm talking about. Maybe it's getting too late. But
No, but thank you so much for your time, Claire. Seriously, thank you for being so open as well, and for sharing so much information, which I think, you know, if people watch this back, I feel like they'll definitely want to go down different little rabbit holes because we spoke about so much.
yeah, yeah. Well, thanks for having me on. I know it's been like a mish trying to organise it with these lockdowns and stuff.
Yeah,
But yeah, no, thank you for having me on. I really enjoyed it. Yeah.
we'll do it again, definitely.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.